Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh Shah, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Barak Dash. All praises, honor, glory, love, respect, faith, and power, and trust, and all credit to my Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and my Heavenly Big Brother, Yahweh Shah. Thank you so much for what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're going to do. Double honors to the apostles and elders and bishops of GMS, Great Millstone, who I learned from, and all the men scattered all over the world, teaching this truth and none but the truth in the name, spirit, and the power of Yahweh by Shema Shah. Trying to put a spiritual bug in you Hebrew Israelites' ears, you so-called blacks, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, Civil Indians, and you speckled birds. And what is a speckled bird? That'd be a Hebrew Israelite that look like some of the heathen nations. Like, for example, a Hebrew Israelite that look like a so-called white person, so-called Chinese person, etc., etc. I got some videos lined up about the food and food supply alert, crisis, droughts and affecting the food, and it's just a whole bunch of problems with the food. Oh, I mean, pretty much just sum it all up that the Lord's breaking the staff of bread. Pretty much. Anyway, and it's leading to famine and cannibalism. Do I have a video about cannibalism? No, but it is leading to cannibalism, but famine. But anyway, I gotta play these videos. I'm gonna get into the scripture my best ability, say whatever God say through the spirit and power. We hold by Shema Shah, the Holy Spirit, the Kurhak, the Dash, Lord willing, be over, let get it.
We have more red flags here in terms of the global food supply. Ukraine and their grain exports are collapsing. They're saying that this is because of attacks in the Black Sea, and this is the breadbasket of all of Europe that is responsible for feeding millions of people. It has largely been GMO'd since America got in there. But what's happening right now is a global reset controlled by Trump and everything going on with Hormuz. What this comes down to are the global choke points. You can see in the image on the right there. The key one over in the Americas is the Panama Canal. But then you have the Straits of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean down to the Suez Canal, which thus far not much has been said in terms of the Suez Canal, but at some point it will be brought into the mix here because Hormuz already locked down, and then the Strait of Tears, the area that they're locking down now. So once these two sections are fully closed off under war, the only way out and around is through the Straits of Gibraltar, and you'd have to go all the way down and around Africa to do so. This is complicating everything. The Trump administration knows this. All the warning signs are there, and they're telling the whole world, a world that I don't think is listening, that this is going to go on for a long time. I would have a plan. I would get ready.
Yeah, and get ready and seek the Lord, repent, do the best you can do. That'd be your best plan.
Harvest is going to be very dismal this year in America, and it's dismal everywhere else. The water is low because of a mega drought. We've seen this from the Danube over to the Colorado River. It's global. They're doing this on purpose, and I'm telling you, this is to usher in a global reset. There's going to be a lot of pain.
Yeah, and bring in that chip implant too.
Pain that comes along with this in the end. So people may think they can skate through the rest of this year. Next year, it's definitely going to be on big time, especially with things not changing. At this point, I'm curious to see how crops turn out for the end of this year. If you're having any issues, any problems, let me know in the comments section. And join me for the live streams where I can expand on this in further detail. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern here on W77. Much love.
I guess I gotta let this ad play. They won't let me skip it.
Europe is facing a growing food crisis as extreme heat and prolonged drought devastate crops across major farming regions. Farmers are warning of food shortages and higher prices after months of scorching temperatures and minimal rainfall. June and July were the hottest on record in Western Europe, with heatwave risks expected to continue through August and September.
It's simply so dry that even the crops that still need to be harvested, you can't even harvest them properly because you need moisture in the soil to be able to dig them up. So, yeah, it sounds a bit strange actually.
France is among the worst hit agricultural powers. Groundwater reserves were severely depleted by early August, while vegetable growers described a historic crisis. Pea yields are projected to fall 40%, broccoli 60%, and artichoke production by up to 100%. Livestock farmers also face a growing forage deficit, while heat has cut egg production and increased poultry mortality.
Usually one region fares better, which helps compensate. This year, all our main production areas have been hit, and at the same time,
The damage is spreading across the continent. Germany's grain harvest is expected to fall 7%, or 3.3 million tons, while southern regions could face total crop failures. Italy's rice fields have been badly hit by water shortages, and Spain is reporting cereal and cattle fodder deficits. In Britain, farmers are also struggling as dry pastures force them to buy additional feed.
It's the grazing, as you can see. That's supposed to be green grass, so we're actually buying in food. So it's going to be a loss on the cattle completely, because each bale you buy in is 50 odd pound, and they're getting through three of those in a week already, and the winter ain't even here yet.
The problem now moves from farms to food supplies. Europe's combined EU and UK grain harvest forecast has been cut to 286.6 million tonnes, below the 310 million tonnes harvested in 2025. With major farming regions hit simultaneously, Europe may need to compete for supplies from outside the bloc. Analysts estimate the heat waves could cost the EU up to 180 billion euros.
for fresh food, mainly fruit and vegetables, the impact will be relatively swift and likely visible in consumer prices in 2 to 3 months.
Wheat could become one of the biggest pressure points for consumers. Oxford Economics expects global food prices to rise 11.8% in 2026, while wheat prices are forecast to jump 36% year-on-year in the third quarter. That threatens staples including bread, pasta, and cereals. Russia and Ukraine also account for just under 30% of global wheat exports, adding further risks to global supplies.
The most severe impact will be in crops, grains, fruit and vegetables, and dairy.
From what I hear about wheat farmers and all the rest of it, for bread making wheat and everything like that, they've been hit hard because the seeds all shrunk and everything. So yeah, it's bound to push up prices.
Europe's food shock is also being compounded by war and higher production costs. Disruption around the Strait of Hormuz has pushed up diesel and fertilizer costs, while attacks and disruption affecting Black Sea grain exports could put 86 million tons of annual export capacity at risk. Oxford Economics warns that the full impact of these overlapping shocks may not yet be visible. For Europe, this is no longer simply a drought hitting farmers. Smaller harvests, depleted water supplies, higher farming costs, and disrupted global grain markets are combining into a wider food security threat. Fresh food prices could feel the impact within months, while processed foods may follow later. From farms to supermarkets, Europe's heatwave crisis is becoming a food price crisis.
You can't lose money year after year after year and keep the business going. And that's
You sure can.
that's the scary part right now.
We're not gonna make any money. We just try to figure out a way to not lose so much.
Just say I was at all soybeans at $150 an acre loss. You're looking at $450,000 a loss for just doing my job.
That's
I'm
a lot.
Paying an additional $450,000 instead of making anything.
And these are the real concerns that the farmers are having. It just costs so much because of the war with Iran. From the diesel fuels to the fertilizers, the insurance, the machinery, the tariffs, the parts, it's so expensive. But the crops aren't going to be bringing them these massive profits. We lost so many trade deals because of the tariff war. So our main sales export markets out to China and different parts of field, they're not there anymore for our farmers. Got mountains of things piling up back here, soybeans, for example. Our farmers are being pinched to the point where they are not going to be making very much money this year. It's going to bankrupt more of them. And if you haven't seen, the crop tours have just started, and anywhere between 3 and 7% so far on corn down for America. They haven't gone into the wheat fields yet. They're into the soy a little bit. They're more into the corn right now. But everywhere you look, it seems like there's just going to be a tightening effect across all agriculture. If our farmers can't continue to make money, they're not going to grow food. And when they don't grow food, then what? We're seeing this across the world. Everything has gotten so expensive. So you wonder, why was this done? You knew the ramifications. How many hundreds of think tanks were out there? And if you do this, A, B will occur. And if B occurs, C will occur. And nobody thought this through. I'm sure they did, but they still went through with it anyway. But what's the reason for that? Because we're already against the 8-ball anyway. And here's the U.S. drought monitor for July 21st. And you see out west, Midwest grow belt was exceptionally dry. It's still relatively dry. East Carolina's over there, North Carolina, South Carolina, really dry. It seems to have come off a little bit. This is the August 13th here. Another 2 weeks after that. But what still persists? The Midwest grow belt dryness, the western dryness, and it alleviated a little bit across the Carolinas and East Coast. But that's been like that the entire grow season. So, minimal yields this year. Everything's looking scrappy. Even if they get the tonnage, it's not very good. It's poor quality compared to, the weight might be there, but the quality is not. This one off the National Security Journal. The Iran war's next shock won't hit the gas pump. It's coming to your food supply, and it's already too late to stop. Food crisis. In blue, maybe the one that lasts. That's not going to be a good one that lasts. That should be the one that should be the shortest. But if you had all these think tanks looking to see what the repercussions, what the effects would be from this going over in the Middle East and cutting off the Strait of Hormuz, and then all these other factions are going to cut off the Red Sea. You knew shipping would get disrupted. You knew that. And here we sit at the verge of a food crisis. And things just aren't getting any, it doesn't look like it's going to get any lighter here these next weeks. Now we're literally the thermonuclear weapon card is on the table. And the hydrogen economic devastation is coming, and the hydrogen bomb for the economies have been set off. And now it's us or them. It's the BRICS or us. We've divided lines like there's no going back from this. No going back. Like what was said in the last week here, divided the world completely into you're next, or they stand together and fight against this dollar regime. And the whole time, the world's food supply is, maybe that's the purpose, the world's food supply.
I'm paying 60% more for diesel fuel than I would have been paying 45 days ago. You gotta have diesel for everything.
That wasn't even 2 months.
To plant, to harvest. So diesel steadily going up like this, man, it affects us bad.
I've never seen prices jump to levels like they are now as fast as they've jumped.
Diesel prices from pumps like these have shot up from $3.22 a year ago to about $5.35 today.
And I got one on the scale just delivered this week, $5.35. That's pretty much exactly what that was pulled this week's pricing. Unlike most olive oils on the market, Cassandrine.
The last cheapest price I paid for diesel was $5.19, and it ain't $5.19 anymore. That'd probably be the last time you ever seen that price. Nah, it's like $5.37. Probably tomorrow it'd be $5.47 or something like that. Could be damn $6. Shit.
$2 years ago, $2 cheaper almost per gallon. Now think about that times hundreds of thousands of gallons used at a single farm in a single year. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars extra just for the fuel.
All right, let me skip this because this part right here. Unofficial, official. Let me see. Global crop failure. Let me see what this is about.
Everywhere you look.
I'll make you a bet. Try Whisper Flow once, just once, and I bet you'll never go back to typing.
Across the planet, India down tremendously on rice and wheat. So it's just one of those years, and then all these costs, our farmers are getting drowned in the costs. So how much more can it take? Because the prices are absolutely starting to rise right now. If you look at the futures market, everything's starting to go up in tandem. So how much higher food prices can we take, you take, and everybody take? That's like an assessment question only you can answer.
This is a yield monitor. This allows me to see instantly what my yield is doing. So this is 4,134. So that's roughly $40,000 worth of soybeans that we have harvested. And a couple of years ago, that was easily $60,000. So that's
a third.
Major change.
If you could pick one word to describe how it feels to be a farmer right now in America, what would that one word be?
Frustrated.
Our farmers are reporting they're on the brink of a crisis.
Iowa farmers feel unheard after the Farm Bill fails to advance to the Senate floor.
Donald Trump cut billions of dollars from federal programs that funded small farmers. The same.
Let me get something real quick. Let me get something. Because I don't want to forget to read it. So let me go ahead and get to it. Second here, chapter 15, verse 11. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before. So the Lord smite. Well, pretty much he smacked it, and he smacked the shit out of Egypt, the ancient Egypt back then, and he's doing it this spiritual Egypt, America. Yep, and it's much worse. And he's doing the whole world. Don't forget. This ain't just for America. It's the whole world too. Where was it? And smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. Egypt shall mourn, America, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that God Yahweh shall bring upon it. They that till the ground shall mourn, talking about them farmers, and that's worldwide. For their seed shall fail through the blasting of hell, from natural disasters, droughts, all kind of stuff, and with a fearful consolation. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Yep.
Program that we got our grant through is no longer funded, and we've just been left to the winds.
I think humanity's been left in the wind. And, third down for pricing, yet everything else has gone up 30, 40%. That's not a good mix. You can see why a lot of these farmers are about to call it quits. And when they do, there's going to be less competition, let's say. Now, I don't know in the end if it's going to be everything owned like Highlander. There will only be one, one seed company that owns all the land in America and farms it, does whatever, tweaking the seeds, and then just gives you whatever price at the end of the year because they can. I see something like this very much winding up right now. And this one popping off from the ancient Ice Age farmer, Christian Westbrook. What up, dude? We need to get back on interview together again. USDA confirms farm expenses rising. Total U.S. expenditures have climbed another almost 2% to a record $490 billion, with an average farm spend hitting, well over $250,000, up 3.1%. Where do you think your food cost is in that? Probably 6% of that food cost, double by the time it gets to you from the farm gate, right? Global Freight on Board, or FOB, wheat.
I don't want to hear all this or see all this. Let's see what this is about.
Wheat. That can't bode well for prices.
I could plant an acre of beans in 1986 for $30.
$30.
It irritates me that you don't have the guts to acknowledge that the people do not pay the tariffs. I don't care if it's John Deere, Case, Caterpillar, all that stuff is outsourced overseas. And the guy that pays it is the guy that purchases it. I can buy a bearing for a combine, and it's made in Taiwan, or who knows where. Parts have over doubled in the last year, if you can get them. The dealer at Marshall has a backlog for almost 4 months where they can't get parts because of Trump's stupid tariffs.
And that's so true. The tariffs, you pay it, I pay it. Ransom and I talked on our Civilization Cycle podcast live show last week about the tariff rebates. Okay, so tens of billions.
I ain't gonna get into all that shit. Yeah, I ain't getting into all that. We just talking about food. We ain't talking about tariffs.
Heat waves and wildfires are ravaging Europe. Crops raised, prices rising, inequality widening. How much can we handle? And what happens when the world's fastest warming continent gets even hotter?
Doom.
Tim Benton is a food security expert.
No, the challenge is that almost everything that we can do to make our food system more resilient will cost.
But he argues that politics gets in the way. Budgets are limited. Election cycles are short.
What we're kind of tending to do is to try and put sticking plasters onto everything rather than do the large-scale fundamental changes until they become absolutely necessary. And at some point in the future, it will become absolutely necessary, and we will have to change the way that we farm in Europe and across the world, but we're not yet at that point. We're just sort of hoping it will go away, or hoping 2026 won't be repeated, but it will be repeated, and it will be repeated increasingly frequently.
Or just repeat it, or either getting worse.
As the years.
Worse than it was last year.
Go on.
I don't know how many more heat waves I can handle. Western Europe had the hottest.
Well, the last one that's coming is going to be nuclear, and that's, just feel the heat, you're going to feel the fire.
June on record, a severe heat wave sizzled southern parts, spreading east, continuing into July. Drought decimated the continent's prime agricultural zones. Harvests were down by about 9 million tons compared to growers' forecasts before the big heat hit. It's estimated to have cost the continent's grain farmers €2 billion in lost revenue, according to the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, a think tank. That doesn't include wider costs of the heat wave, like lost vegetable crops and livestock. There is a silver lining, but it's not all that reassuring.
European harvests have not been very good at all right across Europe, but some harvests in other parts of the world have been better than expected. Canada, India, Turkey for wheat, for example. So in a stable world, that food would be kind of shuffled around so that the people who want it and are willing to pay for it get it. But we don't live in a stable world anymore, and so there is a risk on relying on greater imports into Europe. There is a risk that it will become quite pricey, and if it does become quite pricey, we will on average be able to afford it across Europe because we're quite rich, but it will price other importing nations out of the market, and those are particularly in the developing world, who are much more reliant for absolute food security, actually getting hold of any food on the international market, working very well. So our food security in Europe, more people will be challenged when it comes to filling their shopping basket. That is kind of almost inevitable over the next year or so.
I asked him which hotspots in Europe concern him most.
Of course, the south, France, which is increasingly Mediterranean these days, and that whole kind of desertification possibility of the Mediterranean moving northwards. But from a kind of global interconnectedness perspective, every country is vulnerable for the reasons that I've been outlining, because even if you produce a lot of food, you're still reliant on ingredients and packaging and nitrogen coming from other places, and that's all disruptable, whether by climate itself or climate interacting with geopolitical needs and strategies. 2026 has been a wake-up call across Europe. 2027 on a global basis is going to be hotter, 1.76 degrees above baseline, when we're still supposed to be, according to the Paris Agreement, striving for under 1.5 degrees. Quite how the El Nino will work out and what its impacts will be, no one really knows. We've only got historical examples, and this is going to be probably the biggest El Nino in history.
But do we ever learn from history? Well, Professor Benton says there are enough very recent historical examples that show how environmental crises in any one place in the world can trigger major economic and political discord almost everywhere else.
Well, if you look back at the last 20-odd years of history, the big issues around food price inflation, cost of living crises, and pushing people into food insecurity within Europe particularly, come from 2007-8, which was a big drought in Australia, 2010-11, which was an extreme heat wave in Ukraine and Western Russia. It come from COVID, which may or may not have a biological origin caused by biodiversity disruption and land use change, and came from the blockade of Odessa and the invasion of Ukraine, and from the closure of the Straits of Hormuz. And all of these things are both climate related and geopolitically related, and it's the interaction between the two that becomes most difficult. And at the moment, we've obviously had an unprecedented period of heat across Europe, but we're also moving into the strongest ever El Nino, which tends to act by rewiring global agriculture, plus adding heat into the atmosphere. So next year is forecast now to be 1.76 degrees higher than the pre-industrial baseline, so 1.76 degrees of climate change. That in itself will be disruptive, and let alone what happens with the Iran war, the Ukraine war, and any other points of geopolitical tension around the world. Looking ahead, El Nino, on top of all the rest, is going to continue to drive food prices up and availability down.
Tim says we're caught in a vicious spiral. The way out? We'll talk about solutions soon. First, more about what happens when you couple climate change with divisive geopolitics.
Anyway, it's all the plans of the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shah. Let's get to the next one.
The so-called biological multipliers. So what were the factors? There are very unique standard and mechanisms and protocols that the industry follows, not only for mitigating the potential risk of those contaminations to happen, but also to monitor when those organisms might be present. So in cases where with Cyclospora, we know a lot less about their biology, so it is unclear what are exactly the factors or the environments that drive that survival outside of a human host in an agriculture environment, whether the soil depositions, whether there are specific crop tissues or plant parts that might be more conducive for the pathogen to survive. So we're dealing with a silent, invisible threat that the industry has to really try to mitigate out of a lot of cautiousness in trying to mitigate the risk. Este parásito no se sabe si, cómo o si crece fuera de su hospedero humano. Entonces es importante estudiar su biología y entender más cuáles son los mecanismos o los factores que le permiten sobrevivir en el campo, sobrevivir en el suelo, en el agua, y cuáles son las interacciones que tiene con los cultivos. Si hay cultivos que tienen algún grado de riesgo más alto, o si hay, por ejemplo, ciertos tejidos en las plantas, ciertas partes de la planta que pueden representar un mayor área de crecimiento o agregación del patógeno, ya sea en el suelo, en las raíces o en otras partes de los cultivos.
They got alfalfa sprouts being affected by E. coli and salmonella, both. And I talked about that yesterday, but I ain't gonna talk about it again. But once again, the Lord is breaking the staff of bread. And since I said that, let me go ahead and read that. Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 16. When I shall send upon them the evil arrows of famine, which shall be for their destruction, and which I will send to destroy you, and I will increase the famine upon you and break your staff of bread. So the Lord is affecting the food on how it's been shipped, or how it's being grown, or how it's being shipped. Well, I said shipped, packaged, watered, what else? Processed, all kind of stuff, raised, grown. The Lord is breaking it down. And yeah. If you ain't getting no fertilizer, you ain't getting no water, you ain't getting nobody to pick that shit, you ain't getting nobody to raise the animals, to do all that stuff, yeah.
This morning, President Trump announced a new plan to import 300,000 tons of ground beef into the U.S. with lower tariffs.
Without no regulations of examining the food, none of that shit, yeah.
It's a decision that he and Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins says will help lower prices.
But coming from Argentina, when they ain't got to worry about checking the food, the beef, to see if it's any good, and hell, yeah.
The Iowa Cattlemen's Association says it's going to hurt more than it will help. KCCI's Abigail Curtin spoke with both of them to learn what's at stake for purchasers and producers.
Ground beef. It's a protein staple in millions of American households.
Probably human meat. It says Publix. Yep, that shit says Publix. Well, I don't know. Well, anyway, yeah, they goddamn human meat.
Households. But since January 2025, the price has jumped 24%. President Trump is hoping to change this. Friday morning, he announced he'd allow 300,000 metric tons of ground beef to be imported with lower tariffs over the next 90 days. In a visit to the Iowa State Fair, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins says this will take some of the burden off of consumers' wallets.
We can and get a 25% decrease for families, usually lower income families rely on ground beef. Then he wanted to make that move for the American consumer.
But the Iowa Cattlemen's Association doesn't agree.
Obviously, we're disappointed with that.
Lowering
it's like pretty much they saying fuck y'all.
Beef prices doesn't come without a cost that the Iowa Cattlemen's Association says is creating confusion for its producers.
We talk about supporting our farmers and ranchers, but then you take some of their profitability right away out of this by inserting a foreign product into our domestic market.
This decision comes as Iowa's farmers are already facing high input costs with low profit margins, and as the U.S. supply of beef cattle is at a 75-year low, something Secretary Rollins acknowledged but justified.
I understand the decision and defend the decision and look forward to continuing to rebuild the herd, but to ensure that we're able to provide it.
So it's possible you may notice lower prices on your ground beef in the coming months. But if you ask Whaley,
even after this 90 days, we're still going to have a short supply. We can't turn that cow herd around in that short of a time period. And I think that's one of the things I think people have to realize. It takes 2-3 years for us to get to that point where we're going to be able to meet that demand.
It's a short-term solution at best. In Des Moines, Abigail Curtin, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's News.
Yeah. Let's see what this is about. Pretty much the same shit.
Farmer and rancher Stephen McLeod Jr. joins me now. Right, Stephen, thanks for being on the show. You're a cattle farmer. Do you think that we should be importing cheaper government-subsidized ground beef at your expense?
This is not an easy answer because you can't snap your fingers and regrow the herd overnight in America. Land prices are at an all-time high, property taxes all-time high, inputs all-time high. So it's extremely hard to grow the herd here in the United States, but it certainly does not help the American farmers and ranchers whenever we're importing beef from foreign countries, that's for sure.
Will it get the price down of ground beef at all?
You might see a temporary suppression of pricing, but I don't think it's really going to do much. And I also think that what this is going to bring is these retailers and the consolidation. We talk about the big four meat packers, them raising the prices or keeping that margin for themselves rather than seeing the relief passed on to customers.
All right, here's another one for you. The U.S. is going to reopen the southern border to livestock from Mexico next week. The screwworm outbreak originally shut that border down. So my question is the screwworm scare over?
I don't think it's over yet. I think that we have done quite a bit of research on it. We've implemented some problem solutions, but I still think we are in the thick of it, and I don't think importing beef across the border is the greatest idea, especially when we're dealing with record low inventories across the United States that could then become threatened with screwworm.
But I take it your cattle farmers are doing pretty well. Okay, the herd size is down, but prices are way up. You're profitable, right?
It is a profitable. We're doing better than we have been, but I talked earlier about land prices, property taxes, and all of our inputs rising through the roof as well. So we're seeing a lot of that cost eat into our profit margin as well. So really it's more of a pass-through cost for us than it is a true margin.
Yeah, I'm a tree farmer, and filling up a tractor with diesel these days is getting very, very expensive. Here's another one for you. I want to get this in. A mother and daughter in Kentucky turned down a $26 million offer to sell their farmland after they found out it would be used to build a data center. Watch this.
We're running out of food plots, whether people realize it or not. If you got kids or grandkids, you should be concerned about these hyper data centers.
Tell us about the family farm.
Me and my brother split it up. It was 1,200 acres. Since the tobacco program was bought out, we've been pretty much living off what the cattle been bringing in. I'm very passionate about food. Ain't no two ways about that. They fool around and poison the aquifers because there's mercury and lead and cadmium in the data center. When all that goes together with the farm chemicals, then it'll go right on down into the aquifer. If you got kids or grandkids, you should be concerned about these hyper data centers.
And she knows.
Okay, Stephen, would you turn down a lot of money because you don't like data center?
Shit, it ain't even fucking worth it. You get all that money, then they crash this motherfucker, and you be like, well, damn. And now that money all that money you got ain't worth, but let's say $1 million, and that $1 million worth $300,000 or $200,000 or maybe $1. It's just damn absolutely worthless. It's gonna get that way. It's already getting that way.
It's a tough decision to make, but you have to think about the future generations and what you're doing for your kids and your grandkids, and seeing the energy resources that these data centers use up, and then also knowing that these data centers really don't help that much with local labor because they're pretty much fully automated.
Yeah, no jobs at all. They always say that shit. There ain't no jobs. They one thing they do is pollute the shit out of the land.
It's not a win-win for anyone in rural areas with these data centers coming in.
But AI raises the value of farmland, doesn't it?
Get the fuck out of here. I want to hear that shit about AI now. Anyway, expect to pay high prices for your beef, and just damn near everything. Let's get to this one. Talking about beef processing is being shut down across America.
Best Buy has deals you'll love.
America's beef supply is in trouble, and our grocery prices are going to be going up even more. I know that's not something that anybody wants to hear. It's not definitely what I want to hear, but that is the reality of where we're at right now, because Tyson Foods is closing one of its largest beef processing facilities here in the United States. So if you haven't heard, on August 13th, Tyson Foods announced it was closing its beef processing facility in Jocelyn, Illinois, and workers were told their jobs were ending immediately. 2,500 jobs in that area. Can you imagine? And I know a lot of people don't have to imagine because many people have been going through this year. But you go into work in the morning, you've been working there for many years, maybe you're getting close to retirement, you're really happy with where you are, it's been a very stable job, very reliable job, very hardworking job, and you're told basically, effective immediately, that your job is going to be ending. Well, that's what happened to 2,500 people in Illinois when Tyson Foods made this announcement on Thursday. And I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard about this because it's not a very popular thing. You know, I'm sure the media doesn't want people to just kind of rush out and go into panic, stocking up on already expensive beef prices at the grocery store. But it happened. It happened. And it's not an isolated thing. So it looks like here Tyson also announced plans to close its Eagle Mountain, Utah facility and pursue the sale of its Pasco, Washington facility. All of this comes after the company closed its massive Lexington, Nebraska facility earlier this year, eliminating another roughly 3,200 jobs. So we're talking about thousands of jobs. This is another instance where thousands of jobs are being eliminated practically overnight for these American people. And now they have to deal with the repercussions of that. When you are just let go from your job, you know, most people have mortgages, they have their car payments.
Oh man, she just talking about jobs. Well, what is this? I don't know. I was looking at something else on the other side of the screen. I mean, yeah, it's gonna affect people's livelihood and all that, but also don't forget the food.
Earlier this year, when the plant in Nebraska closed down, a lot of people, because it's such a small town,
because these shit. What I gonna say? Fuck it.
A lot of people had to get up and go somewhere else. They had to move.
And she's not getting into. She's still talking about jobs and shit.
The prices are ridiculous. I mean, it's a disaster when you go to the grocery store now, and everybody knows it. You know, it's funny that the media is now talking about, prices are going up so much, people can't afford it. Burrito.
Yeah, now they talking about fucking burrito. Yeah, they talking about damn $20 burrito, and it's gonna cause a civil war. I'm like, man, shut up.
This shouldn't cost $20, blah, blah, blah. But it's like a newsflash. Prices have been going up dramatically for a long time, and people have not already been able to afford these crazy prices for a long time. So thank you for acknowledging it now, but it's already, we've already crossed that line. So we're going to see now higher prices for beef. And it's not like you're going to walk into the store tomorrow and see the price increase right away. I mean, you might, but it's going to trickle down little by little, so that's what's going to happen. I mean, really soon here, I don't know if anybody's going to be buying beef at the local grocery markets, because who's going to be able to afford that? A struggle meal before used to be spaghetti because beef was so cheap, and then pasta is like the cheapest thing you can practically get almost. And then tomato sauce, very cheap. Put that together, you could feed a large family very inexpensively. Now that's like a luxury meal. Spaghetti's like a luxury meal almost, because if you want to do it with beef, oh wow. I mean, it's a special meal tonight. And what is Tyson saying about this? They're saying that the problem is cattle. They're saying that it's not that Americans don't want beef, it's just that the supply of cattle is at a 75-year low. In fact, they're saying that we haven't had this low of cattle inventory since the 1950s. So that's what they're saying. And on the back of my mind, I'm also remembering the narrative that, we should eat less meat, and meat is, not good for you, and all of this stuff. And if they want people to move away from eating meat and go down that trajectory, isn't it a little convenient that all of this is happening? So that's where my mind goes to, really. We keep seeing catastrophe after catastrophe of things that are happening. I mean, remember the fires a couple years ago in Texas, 2-3 years ago? That was catastrophic. All of the beef that was lost there. You're seeing all kinds of issues in the beef industry. And then now, because of that, we're seeing these plants close down. So groceries are going to go up more, and people are losing their jobs. And guess what? It's not going to just stop there with the beef, okay? It's going to continue into other facilities, and if you think your job is protected, you've got to stay on top of what's happening, because
you're going to be next. We all going to be next. There won't be work in Egypt. Yeah. And there won't be no work anywhere else around the whole world.
There's a lot of jobs that have been lost, you guys.
Alright, she back to the jobs. Well, this ain't that video right now to talk about jobs. I'm only strictly talking about food and famine, the staff of bread being broken by Yahweh Shema Shah, Yeah, anything that's affecting the food, I'm gonna talk about it. And I'm gonna end it with this last video because I'm about through with this one. Well, anyway, let's get to this last one. Second Ezra chapter 15 verse 5. Behold, said the Lord Yahweh, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction.
You better prepare you and your family for the oncoming famine. There is a famine coming and nobody's prepared for it. We're all domesticated animals. You know what happens when domesticated animals don't get fed? Leave it in the comments.
Seek the Lord by seeking his prophet and take heed of what to say and try to build a spiritual mental relationship with Yahweh Shema Shah by praying Yahweh Shema Shah, praising Yahweh Shema Shah, worshiping Yahweh Shema Shah, fearing Yahweh Shema Shah, repenting to Yahweh Shema Shah. To all the men out there pushing his truth and none but the truth in the name, spirit, and the power of Yahweh Shema Shah. Keep on preaching, keep on teaching, keep faith and trust strong. Yahweh Shema Shah, stay humble. And for you few sisters out there taking heed, keep your I forgot. And the men out there that's not prophesying, teaching, and preaching, but keeping the faith and trust strong with Yahweh Shema Shah. I mean, not every man of Israel going to be a prophet of Yahweh Shema Shah. But if you're a believer, you believe in the Lord, and you hey man, keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop. Get it. Same thing for you, you few sisters out there taking heed. Keep your faith and trust strong. Yahweh Shema Shah. Stay humble. Stay in order with your man. If you ain't got no man, stay in order. Yahweh Shema Shah. Peace and bless to the whole full lake, and all praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. Shalom.